All right, everybody, I got 7 o'clock. Let's call to order this Urban Renewal Agency meeting for the City of Troutdale, January 16, 2024. Sarah, if we can have roll call, please.
Sure. Can you hear me okay?
Gotcha.
Okay. I'm going to do the roll call for the Urban Renewal Agency first, and then the Town Center Advisory Board. Director Ritma.
Here.
Director Caswell.
Here.
Director One.
Here.
Director White.
Here.
Director Wittrin.
Present.
Director Glantz.
Present.
Chair Lauer.
Here.
Tanny Stephenson.
Here.
Diane Castillo.
She'll be joining shortly. There she
Okay,
is.
thanks. Okay. Zach Andrews. Was Zach Andrews present?
I see him on the
See it.
screen.
He's
Yeah.
waving his hand at you.
Oh. Will Knight.
Hello, present.
Victoria Rizzo.
Here.
Adrian Kester. Don't see Adrian on yet. Jeff Hutchinson.
Here.
Shirley Prickett. Oh, I see Shirley.
I'm here.
Carol Allen
Here.
and Chair Leamy.
Here.
All right. Thank you, Sarah. Let's move on to agenda item number 2, motion and the election of a 2024 agency vice chair. And this is open up to the floor. So if you wish to make a motion for a vice chair for the agency, go ahead and unmute yourself, state your name and your motion for the record. Don't everybody jump at the chance.
I nominate me.
Oh, look at that. Do I have a second for, actually, let's just go ahead. If there's no other nominations for vice chair, Director One.
Yeah, I would nominate Director Wittrin.
Okay, with the nomination for Director Wittrin.
I'll second the first nomination for Council President Dave Ritmo.
We'll take a vote here in just a second, Director White. All right, any other nominations? All right, and close nominations. Let's do a vote, Sarah, for Director Ritma first, and then we'll go into Director Wittrin. Oh, you're on mute.
Just getting my voting order here real quick. Okay, for Director Ritma, Director Wittrin,
No.
Director Glantz,
Yes.
Chair Lauer,
Nope.
Director Ritma,
Yes.
Director Caswell,
Yes.
Director White,
Yes.
and Director Wittrin. I'm sorry, I skipped somebody here. My apologies. Director One, sorry.
No.
Okay.
All right, we can count.
Yes.
Congratulations.
Did you want me to do roll call?
Let's go ahead and just, I think we've already taken the votes. So I think we can go ahead and move forward with Council President Ritma being vice chair for the agency. Good job. Thank you, everybody. Let's move on to agenda item number 3, public comment. Public comment on non-agenda and consent agenda items is welcome at this time. Public comment on agenda items will be taken at the time the item is considered. Public comment should be directed to the presiding officer and limited to matters of community interest or related to matters which may or could come before the agency. Each speaker shall be limited to 5 minutes for each agenda item unless a different amount of time is allowed by the presiding officer with consent of the agency. So if anybody wishes to make public comment, since we're all on Zoom tonight, I'm going to ask that you raise your hand, actually physically, or just use the raise hand function on Zoom, and state your name and city of residence for the record. All right, not seeing anybody. I'm going to close public comment. We're going to move on to agenda item number 4. 4.1 minutes, June 20, 2023, Urban Renewal Agency regular meeting, and July 11th, 2023, Urban Renewal Agency special meeting.
Motion for adoption?
Second.
Is that second by Director Ritma?
Yes.
Okay. All right, all in favor of approving consent agenda signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. All right, no opposed. Passes. Thank you very much. All right, let's move on to agenda item number 5, a resolution approving the Urban Renewal Agency's financial statement for the fiscal year ended June 30, 2023, and accepting the independent auditor's report. There he is. Mr. Mueller, you have the con.
Thank you, Chair Lauer, and good evening and to you and to the directors. This is similar to the presentation from last week related to the city's financial statements, but of course it's much more limited. The agency is a separate legal entity, and under the Oregon statutes where it was created, we go through a separate budget process as well as separate financial statements, and separate audit is required. Similar information as last week, but unlike the 37 funds of the city, there are only 2 funds that are composed that make up the Urban Renewal Agency financial statements. Also, the Urban Renewal Agency is considered what is considered a component unit. So the financial information that is part of the, is part of the city's financial statements that were included last week. These financial statements are in a slightly different format in order to comply with the GAAP reporting and the state requirements, but the content, the information is no different than it's unchanged from last week. As was similar with the financial or with the city's information, there are multiple component parts, a few less parts than the city's, but there's an audit opinion letter, which is sort of the primary report from the auditors. It's known as the Independent Auditors Report, page 1 in the attached Exhibit A in your packet. The key part is the auditor's opinion letter states that, in our opinion, the financial statements referred to above present fairly in all material respects the financial position of the government activities for each major fund of the Urban Renewal Agency of the City of Troutdale, component unit of the City of Troutdale as of June 30, 2023, and respective changes financial position for the year there ended in accordance with principles generally accepted in the United States of America. That's the long-winded way of saying we have a clean opinion for this past fiscal year. The typical management letter was not issued again this year, as it was not needed to be issued for the city's financial statements. The Exhibit B is the auditors are required to communicate openly and directly with the city council, and the statement of auditing standards number 115 requires that the auditors identify any internal control deficiencies, same categories as last week: lowest, not significant deficiencies; intermediate, significant deficiencies; and most serious material weaknesses. Fortunately, there were no deficiencies observed in any of these 3 categories or internal control exceptions. The Oregon Municipal Audit Law, which again is what requires it be done separately from the city as well, is in the last few pages of Exhibit A. There's a whole list of criteria that and items that they check, several of which don't apply to the agency, but simply because such as highway revenues, since the agency doesn't receive any of the state gas tax. In any case, they've gone through and checked all of those. We have the same violation that I reported last week, that where I overpaid or exceeded the budget for the interest paid on internal loans, the loan between the general fund of the city and the Urban Renewal Agency. Again, as I had budgeted when interest rates were 0.5 percentage point, and the end of the period we were at over 5%. We ended up exceeding the interest budget by $1,546. Again, this was, as I reported last week, this was internal. We paid it from the Urban Renewal Agency back to the general fund. The auditors noted it as part of their compliance, but as rather it was technical rather than substantive, excuse me. And then finally, the SAS 114, the auditor communication to the governing body, is attached as Exhibit B. Again, there's a number of items that they go through and report on. They're required under SAS 114 to communicate openly, candidly, and specifically with those charged with corporate governance. In the case of the Urban Renewal Agency, of course, it's the Urban Renewal Agency Board. Again, they noted in their report that there was a clean, unmodified audit opinion. There was no exceptions to the state standards other than the one that I mentioned, and that there was no separate audit, there was no separate management letter issued again this year. Then there's a number of criteria that they check, and there was no deficiencies found. So all of that is for the record. Of course, there's much more detail contained in the packet, but receiving this information, having the agency approve it as part of the official record with the proposed resolution helps complete the record and demonstrate and document the financial oversight of the agency board. And with that, Mr. Chair, I'm happy to respond to any questions.
Chair Glantz, or I'm sorry, Director Glantz.
Yes, a couple questions. How is the value of the land determined? Does that be by Multnomah County assessment? Is that a number based on what we've spent?
The land value that's on the financial statements is recorded at the purchase price. So it doesn't reflect any changes in market condition.
Okay. And I'm looking at the statement of net position, and it shows 244,913, 250,000 in construction in progress. What is the construction in progress?
That would be all the expenses related to any project that is not completed and closed out. So a project that takes time over a course of multiple fiscal years, or even just over the end of one fiscal year into the other, you capture the costs in construction and process. Then when the project is finally closed out and you can finalize the amount, then it gets removed from that category and placed into either land improvements or infrastructure or whatever the case might be. In this particular case, these are the costs that have been accumulated associated with the planning and design for the Riverfront Trail thus far. And of course, we continue to spend money on that during this fiscal year, which continues to add to that total and the coming year as well.
Perfect, thank you.
Any other comments or questions for staff before I open up to public comment? All right, not seeing anybody. Let's go ahead and open up public comment on agenda item number 5, a resolution approving the Urban Renewal Agency's financial statement for fiscal year ended June 30, 2023, and accepting the independent auditor's report. If you have or wish to make public comment, again, use the raise your hand feature on Zoom, and then I will call on you and state your name and city of residence for the record. All right, not seeing anybody. I'm going to close public comment. Any other comments from the agency? If not, I'd entertain a motion.
Mayor, I make a motion that we adopt the resolution approving the Urban Renewal Agency's financial statement for fiscal year ended June 30th, 2023, and accepting the independent auditor's report.
I'll second.
Seconded by Director One. All right, Sarah.
Okay. Director Wittrin,
Yes.
Director Glantz,
Yes.
Director Ritma,
Yes.
Director Caswell,
Yes.
Director One,
Yes.
Chair Lauer,
Yes.
and Director White.
Yes.
All right, passes. Thank you very much. We're going to move on to agenda item number 6, a resolution approving the agency's annual financial impact report for fiscal year ending June 30, 2023. Mr. Mueller, the show is yours again.
Thank you, Chair Lauer. As I think I mentioned, going on a few years now, back in 2019, the legislature updated ORS Chapter 457, which is what some 30 pages that governs the structure and operation of urban renewal agencies in the state. In any case, they expanded the reporting requirements for urban renewal agencies. And this is what obligates us to basically have an agency meeting in January of each year, because we're required to prepare a report, publish a summary in the paper before January 31st, and distribute a report to all the overlapping districts. So as a consequence, that is the report that I've prepared each year since then, and bring to you this evening for your approval, so that I can fulfill the remainder of those administrative tasks. The report is to summarize the sources and uses of funds for the agency, and in particular to report on the collection of the tax increment and the use of that, what was collected in the prior year, what is proposed to be spent in the coming year, as well as the impact on the overlapping taxing districts from which the tax increment is divided from and provided to the agency. The report itself is included there as Exhibit A for in the attached to the staff report. As I mentioned in prior years, it summarizes that information. Our division of tax thus far is very small in comparison because of how the increment value and the frozen base are related in our agency. The expectation is that once development occurs on the site, that the increment value will rise substantially, providing additional tax increment, which is what is used to pay off the up to $7 million of maximum debt allowance from tax increment financing. I won't go through the long detail information provided in there. Once the report is approved, then I'm obligated to distribute it to each of the overlapping districts, which are listed on the last page of the report, which includes the county, both the county and the library at the county, Metro, Port of Portland. Have to distribute a copy from the agency to the city of Troutdale as well, and to the East Multnomah Soil and Water Conservation District, Mount Hood Community College, and the Reynolds School District, and then be available to answer any questions that those agencies might have. So with that, Mr. Chair, I'm happy to address any questions.
Director Glantz.
I have a couple questions. Am I reading this correctly, that we basically still have $4.8 million of spendable money, or is that some kind of incremental that we could get to that?
I'm finding the right page to make sure I'm looking at the, yes, we have 4.8 million, well, as of June 30th, but of last year, we had 4.8 million remaining of the original 7 million that was authorized back in 2006, available for us to borrow. The limitation of that is what is available to be repaid by the tax increment. And so that's the remainder of that amount. We have debt outside of what is repaid by the tax increment, which is that next category below with that little shaded line in between.
So the 6.5 million is something that comes out of city budget?
The 6.5 million was the proceeds that the city obtained by doing the $5 million full faith and credit borrowing that we did 5.5 years ago. The city received those funds from the external lender and then turned around as the city lent that money to the agency. The city in this year's budget had approved, and we completed just before the mid-year budget committee meeting, paying off that $5 million. So the external lenders have been repaid for that, but the agency is still in debt to the city. And then the other 1.5 is a similar, where the city borrowed from the Business Oregon's Brownfield Remediation Cleanup Fund. I'm getting the name a little incorrect there, but in any case, 1.5 million. And that is a loan that is we pay monthly on, approximately $16,000 and change. I don't remember precisely. That we're continuing to make the monthly payments on. The city makes those payments. Again, it was the same thing. The city borrowed that money from the external lender, turned around and loaned that money to the agency, and that was the additional money that we needed to complete the environmental cleanup of the site.
And for that, the URA to be able to pay the city back would necessitate the sale of the property, correct?
That was the discussion and the expectation at the beginning 5-6 years ago when we entered into these, that proceeds from the sale of real property would trigger the requirement to repay the city. The agency was not obligated to make payments on the non-TIF debt, these two pieces that are the total of 6.5, until they sold the real estate.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments from the agency? Director White.
Yeah, on the very last page on section 5, you know, it sounds like our finance director has carte blanche, but I'm probably misreading it. Is that something that's always been in this resolution that we passed? That language?
Yeah, that's the same paragraph that has been there since, well, I don't remember whether this is the 6th year or 5th year, but yeah, basically yeah, I know what carte blanche is. I'm basically directed and obligated to fulfill all the requirements of that section, which is to do all the reporting to the other agencies and respond to the questions, file the reports, and make sure the publication is accomplished to do it. It's similar to the obligations on the budget notice side.
Okay, thank you, Eric. I didn't remember reading that in the past, but thanks for that clarification.
Sure.
All right, any other comments from the agency? All right, I'm going to open it up for public comment again. Public comments open on agenda item number, I apologize, it was on the wrong screen.
6.
Agenda number 6, a resolution approving the agency's annual financial impact report for the fiscal year ending June 30, 2023. Anybody wishing to make public comment, now's the time. All right, not seeing anybody jump at the chance. I'm going to close public comment. If there's no other comments or questions from the agency for staff, I would entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the resolution approving the agency's annual financial impact report for the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2023.
Second that.
All right.
Okay. Director Wittrin,
Yes.
Director Glantz,
Yes.
Director Ritma,
Yes.
Director Caswell,
Yes.
Director One,
Yes.
Chair Lauer,
Yes.
and Director White.
Yes.
All right. Thank you, everybody. Passes. Thank you, Mr. Mueller.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right, let's go on to agenda item number 7, a progress report on the Confluence Site development projects. Mr. Ray Young, you have the floor.
Great, thank you, Chairman. I'm going to be talking in 2 different areas. The first area I'm going to talk about is the park infrastructure development that's going on in the urban renewal area. And the second area we'll be discussing is the commercial development prospects for the property. And joining us tonight to help with that presentation is Chris Nelson from Capstone and Abe Farkas, who has been our long time consultant on the URA, are both here to be involved in that second part, which is the commercial development. So the first part is the update on the trail and the park development around there. We are still on track to hopefully put it out for bid sometime in April to build the trail. We are working right now on the 90% engineering designs for the Union Pacific Railroad Bridge underbridge. We have to put a bridge under the bridge because of floodplain issues for the railroad foundations there. We expect by the end of January, we should have to the peeps in Omaha that 90% design paperwork for them to approve. Based on past history for the 30 and 60% design approvals, they've been anywhere from 30 to 60 days getting that approval, and that's pretty much the last approval that we need from Union Pacific Railroad, and then they'll grant us a easement license to be able to go underneath their bridge. So that's going well. We have already started the land use approval process to complete the trail. We did kind of annoy Union Pacific Railroad a little bit because they got a hold of it and says, well, hey, we haven't even approved your 90%. What are you doing with this land use document? We told them it's just part of the process. You're an adjoining landowner. We had to send it to you. We're not doing anything until you actually approve it. So we're moving ahead with that so that everything's ready. And of course, money. Bill Peterson, who's our consultant on our grants, has been working with Eric and Metro and the Oregon State Parks to make sure we're getting all lined up for how to take draws on the approximately $2.7 million in total grants that we have for that trail. So that communication has been going really well with Metro and Oregon State Parks because we want to make sure we can get that money. So we're getting ready for that, getting all our ducks in a row so that come springtime we put out for bid, we're ready to actually expend those monies. So now that's the trail, which is essentially from the south side of the railroad bridge, just north of the depot, all the way up to the I-84 bridge, the trail. Now, we're also working on the bike hub, which is the Depot Museum and the Depot Visitor Center. And Marley is here, our economic development expert, to talk about what we're doing and getting to do the development on the bike hub, which will transform the front of the depot. Marley.
Thanks, Ray. So some of you guys may have been involved in the past with the Bike Hub project. It's a project that's been going on for a number of years that the Chamber of Commerce initially started with Travel Oregon and the Gorge communities. So we have plans for this Bike Hub concept at the Depot Visitor Center. However, we recognize that those plans didn't take into account the lower level of the property and the interconnectedness with the trail that we'd be building. So we're currently working on modifying those plans to better accommodate the connection with the trail, some parking, and some ADA improvements, and a couple of other like modern improvements to bike infrastructure that we now know about, given that things have changed over.
Marley, just for a second here, I'm going to throw up a picture of the front of the depot just so they can look at that while you're talking.
Thanks, Ray. Yeah, in the couple of years since these plans were designed, we've learned how people use bikes even more. So we have some changes to those things. So we've got the first draft back from the engineering firm and the landscape architecture firm that's working on integrating these designs. And so we've made some decisions on a couple of things that'll change, and then we're gonna continue to review that, and hopefully we'll have a really nice integrated design that connects our downtown to the trail really nicely and draws people to this location.
Oh, great. Thank you, Marley. So Chair, I think since we're on the parks part of this, if maybe there's any question from the board or the TCAB, maybe it's a good time to get questions on the park side of it before we move to the commercial development side of it.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Since this is a joint meeting between Urban Renewal Agency and the Town Center Advisory Board, I'll defer to Chair Leamy. I saw him. There he is. There's John. To any questions from his group?
So do we have any questions? Doesn't look like it. Oh, Shirley? No.
All right, not seeing anybody.
Maybe one quick
I
question.
think Diane might have had a question. Sorry, I just noticed Diane's hand was up a minute ago.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yep, gotcha, Diane. Go ahead.
Okay, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, the design looks beautiful. I was just inquiring about, we were talking about incorporating our small town feel and then taking on in front of the waterfront. We're just making a quick suggestion about, we had talked about this before with Rick Caswell, integrating some lighting that's from the street, the old lighting, and possibly those smaller walls that I'm looking at. I don't know if we could incorporate that rock look that we have along the historic highway that Rip Castle also incorporated in the two Sams. That's just a suggestion, and I don't know where we're at on that plan, just throwing that in. Thank you.
Thank you. We will definitely talk with our architects about those two things.
Any other questions?
Yeah, one quick question, Mayor, or Chair. For Ray, I know we talked about funds real quick and the grant money that we're getting, but part of that was match money that the city needs to spend. At what point does the city need to start spending its own money against the match money?
That is sometimes kind of complicated with the different grants from Metro and Parks. Eric, I know we just exchanged some emails on that one. Do you have any comments, Eric, regarding, is there some actual process in terms of how we balance spending our funds versus each of the grant funds?
Well, each of the grants, there's one from state parks and one from Metro. Regrettably, they have different effective dates. So some expenditures fall into one and others into the other. It's a nice problem to have because Metro and state parks allowed each to be counted as match against the other. So that helped a great deal. But Bill Peterson, our grant funding specialist, has filed the first report with state parks. They came back and asked us to modify it and keep it open because at this point we weren't asking for any match. It was just a quarterly report with about $65,000 worth of expenses. We expect that we'll be doing reimbursement requests probably, if we're able to get the bidding out in April, we're going to get about packages back, select a contractor. I don't know how quickly they're going to be able to start turning dirt, as it were, but they're typically a month following that before they're able to then bill for that prior month's work. So I don't anticipate writing, as Bill and I talked about, 6-figure checks till probably July of this coming year. So I don't know if I'm getting at the nature of your question or not.
Yeah, so it's just,
You're on.
yeah, just to answer, yeah, Councilor Wittrin's question. A lot of it is stair stepping back and forth. I mean, the city quite often has to put out money up front. We get reimbursed, it goes back in there. I'll just so you'll know, our total goal is to make sure we don't leave $1 on the table when it comes to state parks or Metro. We will ultimately get all that money from them. It's just sometimes we have to lead with the money and seek reimbursement. But it is fairly complicated and each of them have different rules. That's why we have Bill and Eric working hard on that.
Thank you.
All right, any other questions? Director White.
Yeah, I know Ray and some of the other staff members met with Grand Ron Tribe. I don't know if that affects this project or if they decided to go elsewhere, but I was really excited about the idea of them getting involved either on our trail or adjacent property, just because they have the ability to actually do like a fishing pier or a boat landing, and those are things I'd love to see happen down there. So I'm wondering if you guys can fill me in on an update.
Right now, there's probably two things that are going on with the Grand Ron Tribe in that regard. Number one is the confluence of Beaver Creek and the Sandy River, which is just upstream, a couple hundred feet from the railroad bridge. We are working with them for a cultural easement. They're supposed to be getting us a draft so that the tip of the peninsula there, the city owns about a quarter acre there at the very tip that they're going to utilize for tribal ceremonial uses. So we're waiting for that. It's property that we don't really have access to, but they're happy to use it because they can get canoes to it and do some cultural stuff there. So there'll be things going on there. And Marley has already talked to them about doing some joint city tribe events that kind of connect to that, and at the new bike hub as we finish that up. So you'll be seeing a lot of stuff in the future partnering with them regarding their cultural use of the city's property there. Second of all, which goes back many years, and I know Diane remembers this, part of the trail that we build is going to have, historical landmarks, and working with Grand Ron, we're going to interspace in there some culturally relevant informational signage along the trail that goes along with historical signage on the trail. So we've already talked to them about being involved in that, and that's something we're slowly starting to develop with a landscape architect as we finish up the designs on that. Mark, did you have anything to add toward that historical, cultural, and Native American signage on the path?
No, I think you did a pretty good job summarizing that.
Okay, so those are kind of the two things we're working with them on now.
Thank you.
All right, any other questions before we move on to the next part of this presentation? All right, Mr. Ray Young.
Great, thank you. And as I get started in the commercial part, first of all, I want to recognize that Lauren Jones is also here from Capstone. Her and Chris have been the two primary people the city's been working with on the economic development portion, the commercial development portion there. A little bit of background, most of all of you are aware of how we got here with Capstone. We're going through the request for qualifications. They were selected to have an exclusive negotiating agreement with the city of Troutdale to kind of work through what would be the potential commercial development on the property. That exclusive negotiating agreement actually expires today. It had one extension. They're here to give us a report on where they sit with that, what they see the future of the property, and what, if any, involvement they may have in the property. Beyond that background, I assume most everybody, I know the TCAB and the council have read proposal from Capstone, which a key part of their proposal was to collaborate with the mall owners to be able to have an improved access through the mall that would benefit both the mall owners and the development and the city. So one of the key issues that we've had to pursue for the last 6 months is time equities, the owner of the mall willing to work with us. Like I said, we have worked really closely with both Chris and Lauren at Capstone to try to strategize how to do that, how to work with time equities. As some of you may remember, time equities is a fairly large multinational retail development, investment, management firm based on Fifth Avenue in New York City. They have roughly 35 million square feet of retail, industrial, and commercial space around the world. They've got some pretty big, expensive properties all around the world. And one of their parcels, goes without saying, one of their smaller parcels is the outlet mall. And so we have tried to reach out to them and try to work with them. We started off with, back in August, I reached out to Ami Ziff. Ami is our national retail director who handles all their retail properties in the United States. I have been back to visit Ami in New York. He's been here. We've had coffee here. So I've had a relationship with him years. And they've always told me that, when you select one developer, have them call us. We don't want to talk with everybody who applied. So I called them up to introduce them, that Capstone would be reaching out to them and wanting to meet with them. And Ami was very resistant to any in-person meeting. He said, I'll only talk to him by phone. That's it. It was just like, yeah, I promised you, Ray, I would. So I'm going to do the minimum necessary I have to fulfill my promise. I did appreciate that, at least. He wasn't obligated to do more than that. So I connected him up with Chris Nelson. Chris did have a phone conversation with him. Chris will speak for himself as to the phone conversation. Other than, from our point of view, is it was not very productive conversation. He did not get a lot of warm and fuzzies or any cooperation or collaboration out of Ami and Time Equities. We then discussed an alternative approach, and I think the TCAB and the council has gotten copies of some letters that were sent. We thought, well, maybe Time Equities just isn't catching the vision, isn't seeing how financially beneficial a collaboration with Capstone would be for the mall owners and the mall investors themselves. So we said, well, maybe Ami's just too busy. He doesn't have time to sit back and think of the big advantages there would be to Time Equities to partnering with us. So we put together a letter from the city, and Capstone put a letter from themselves to Ami and Francis Greenberger. Francis is the owner of Time Equities. He has been investing in New York City. He's a billionaire since, probably 50 plus years ago. So we sent two very nice, encouraging, positive, we'd love to make money with you, well, not the state Troutdale, but, Capstone and Time Equities, and to benefit the city. So we sent these letters off. Personal delivered them to Francis and to Ami. And lo and behold, about 3 weeks later, we got a very grumpy letter from a lawyer in Oregon saying, bug off. We're not going to work with you. We're not going to cooperate with doing any other alternative through the mall. This conversation is done. If you ask us again, consider it a dead horse. I'm putting my words into it. But essentially, that's what the letter from the attorney said is, don't bug us anymore. We're not going to work with collaboration for any other access through the mall. So after 7 years, 8 years of working with them and trying to, in some ways, trying to backtrack from some kind of bad blood that might have been established between a prior property owner of the URA property and Time Equities, they still are saying, don't even talk to us about it. Honestly, my personal opinion is that at this point, because of the size of Time Equities, I honestly don't think they really care. I think whatever rate of return they're getting on the mall, they're satisfied with it. They don't want to spend a minute of time trying to do any more work with the mall. They're too busy doing other things. And if you look at their website, they're buying properties all the time, all around the world. And so this is not something that's high on the list for them to even spend a second thinking about. So that's kind of the sense that I got from them from that. Capstone, they mentioned they did reach out to them with the possibility of, well, would you consider selling the mall, which is something they intimated to in the letter from the attorney. And I'll have to just say that Ami was, I would think, relatively unprofessional, but very clear that we don't want to talk any reasonable price with anybody wanting to buy the mall. You know, unless you buy it at a king's ransom for what we want to sell it for, don't even bother. So I think that was a very noble and laudable approach that Capstone took to try to come up with another way of getting the mall and the development to be integrated, and that failed a couple weeks ago. So at this point, there is not really any prospect of any change there in terms of access. I will tell everyone that Travis and his engineering team at Public Works is progressing now to begin the plans and design to create our current right-of-way. As most of you know, we have a right-of-way already 40 foot wide down into the mall, the hard left in front of Starbucks, Coach, and Levi, and it goes up to the north side of the mall and then goes into the urban renewal property. We have a 40 foot right-of-way. So we've started the design process to flesh out that as a full city street all the way around. And as I've already shown Time Equities personally and on maps, when we do that, all the parking in front of Levi, Coach, and Starbucks will go away. They will have a 40 foot wide public street cutting their mall off from that building with a couple of their largest tenants. But that's all we got. So we got to move forward with it at a minimum to have access for the public for the trail. And that would appear to be our only commercial access to the property. So we've got to make it look pretty for whatever development comes to the property. So saying all that, I'm going to turn it over to Chris and Lauren to kind of give Capstone's perspective of what they've seen, where they're at, and what they're thinking about the future.
Yeah, thanks, Ray. Lauren Jones with Capstone Partners. Ray, thanks for the introduction, and directors, just want to thank you all for inviting us tonight. And then before going into what's transpired over the past couple of months, just want to say thank you for your selection of Capstone, Anchor Moyson Architects, and our entire team as the master developer. The Confluence Site is a wonderful site. It's very unique, and we were really excited, are excited to be part of it. And, you know, as Ray described, you know, we really built off all of the hard work the URA did and community members, and putting together a real mixed use area that built off the public investment with the park and trail, with retail, housing, smaller commercial retail, hotels, and then industrial maker space. And when we did our presentation, we were very clear that in order for it to be successful, for our vision to be successful, it included having that main street through the Columbia Gorge Outlet Mall into the Confluence Site. I mean, as it's existing right now, to access that site, you go back behind the northern buildings. You're kind of in a back loading area to enter into this wonderful site, and felt like it really need to have a wow moment coming into it. So as Executive Director Young described, Time Equities was just not interested in engaging with us on putting a new road through the outlet mall. And, you know, given the feedback that we had from Time Equities, you know, it's just not possible at this time to move forward and implement the vision that we came up with for the site. Therefore, Capstone needs to step back from being the master developer of the Confluence Site. You know, I'd like to note that just during this time also, that since the RFQ was sent out in 2022, I think it was mid-year August in the summer, until now, the capital markets and real estate have just shifted dramatically. As you all know, the Fed's raised the federal funds rate, which has made the cost of borrowing almost double where it was back in the summer of 22, a little bit before that as well. And then also just the structural shift in the office sector with more hybrid working and working from home has had rippling effects throughout the banking industry, and effectively halting construction financing for all types of development. So it's really just to say that there's been a huge impact over the past couple of months in our industry. And then finally, we're just seeing a reset in values. So, whereas before we'd be, something would be valued much higher, now that the cost of borrowing has gone up, values have come down. And I say all this just to make a point that the real estate industry is in a down cycle right now. And then through talking with Ray and Chris and our whole entire team, feel like it'd be a great time to move forward with the trail and the road work and being prepared as a city just for the next up cycle. We're not going anywhere. We're still going to be around. So hopefully we can still be a partner to you all in some way as things progress over the next couple of years, and love to get engaged again at some point if the road becomes feasible through the gorge outlet. So thank you, directors. Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure working with Ray, and hope to be a resource going forward.
So I think, if they got any questions, but I think if I didn't say it, I think from my perspective, I have to agree with Capstone that with the market the way it is right now, what's going on and having to deal with the trail and the bike hub, we've got plenty of things to do as a city staff in 2024 that maybe a commercial development just sits on the back burner. And let me add one more thing too. I want to thank the TCAB. Capstone, Lauren, and Chris have been fabulous to work with. I hope somewhere down the road that they are still around and we can get them back in, because they were, I think they would be great to work with the city and actually do a development if we're able to someday. So, and that I may want at this time, Mayor, ask if Abe Farkas wants to add or if you have any questions. But Abe's been, gosh, I don't know, Abe, you've 7 or 8 years, you've been kind of the city's consultant on the URA.
You'll have to ask Eric the detailed question on that, but I think shortly after the redevelopment agency got involved in this particular site, I was asked to come on and be of assistance. You've been through a number of cycles. I think you did select the right developer in this case. I've known Chris and Lauren for a long time. They are really exceptional. If anybody could do this and pull it off, they could. But you've got a fairly obstinate entity in New York City.
Let me add, as you say that, Abe, let me interject here. Abe went with me in 2017, and Abe has met with Francis Greenberger, met with Ami. We had lunch with Ami, so he is familiar with personally the people back in New York. Go ahead, Abe. Sorry.
And no, I think one of the sad parts from my perspective is that Francis does have a development director, and you were meeting with Ami, who oversees all the retail in the United States, and I get that, but it's unfortunate we're not able to have discussions with whoever the current development director is. Or at least the United States, or maybe Western United States. But the situation you find yourselves in at this point in time, I think is, as Lauren really alluded to, something that a number of cities in Oregon and across the country are finding themselves in. I've been working with the city of Springfield for a long time. They had a project totally teed up for a downtown 8-story mixed use project, totally permitted. And then the financial markets just went ballistic, and that project is been deferred for who knows how long until the markets adjust. So you're not in a unique situation from that perspective. But I do think you're doing the right thing, which is what other communities are embraced in, which is going ahead with key public infrastructure development to enhance the value of the land that you have and make that an even more desirable site for future redevelopment.
All
Yeah,
right.
I would add real briefly, Lauren, I think, did a great job summarizing our position, but I also wanted to extend appreciation to Ray and the team for the partnership up until this point. And as Lauren said, we're not going away. I drive by the Confluence a couple times a week on my way from Hood River into Portland, and would love the opportunity to have a hand in its commercial development when the time is right. And as Ray also mentioned, we offered to travel to New York to visit with Francis and his team, and we just basically just got the cold water treatment. So it's unfortunate. We thought, with a window of maybe coming up with a strategy to just buy it and create a bigger vision, that might be an angle, but they clearly aren't motivated or interested in selling it at a market price that's reasonable. And so, I think we're just we're just got to be patient. And as Lauren said, we hope that we'll have the opportunity to re-engage with you guys if the time's right. But we really appreciate the approach you took and the vision you have. It's a great community. And you've got really good building blocks that have already been established in your commercial core, and Marley and her team are doing a great job. I think the park is going to be a wonderful reason to bring people to your town more than they do today. So you're making all the right moves and taking the right steps. And I think, you know, the future is bright. Hopefully the outlet mall ownership will have a change of disposition in terms of how they look at things.
Yeah, this, in my opinion, this development stood on three legs. It stood on a leg supported by the city. It stood on a leg supported by the developer we chose in Capstone and their partners. And we needed a third leg with that New York entity. We needed these to be visionaries. We had two of the three on the visionary side, and that group in New York they just couldn't see the picture or didn't want to see the picture, and it's too bad. And so it's difficult when the market is dictating what we do instead of realizing what we're trying to do is something that's going to outlast this market, the next market, and the market after that. But it has to make sense for all three. So it's to say I'm disappointed is an understatement. To say I'm surprised, not so much. It's difficult from our standpoint in our small town to see what big mall conglomerate, worldwide conglomerate, sees or doesn't see in our community and our development. So we appreciate the efforts, and we appreciate everybody working hard for an outcome that we just weren't able to get to. Director Glantz.
Yeah, I agree with the not surprised but still disappointed comment. I had a question for Capstone. What kind of projects are you currently working on?
We are working on acquisitions. We're looking for acquisitions of multifamily or industrial projects. Then we also, on the development side, we have some land for larger logistics build-to-suits. I would say that both of those are slow.
Just curious. Thank you.
Any other comments or questions for Capstone staff? Director White.
Hi, Capstone. I really appreciate your efforts, and you know, my hat's off. You guys went, you know, the full mile by even offering to buy the outlet mall. But I understand the dynamics just weren't there. But you know, I really believe in that site. It's pretty breathtaking views, and it has a lot of regional interest. My question to you is, I'm wondering if a development on a smaller scale, maybe to get like, because there are multiple lots available down there, if you guys would consider possibly just trying to do something like an anchor tenant and a smaller scale project. And I think showcasing the property from the freeway is a good option. And then you know, most people around here like to take exit 18 because it's so scenic, and it takes you by right in front of that. You have a full view of that property as you're coming in, and then you wind your way through Troutdale, because we want to keep that connection alive between Old Troutdale and the Confluence Site. I'm kind of grasping straws, but I thought it was worth mentioning. You guys were our top pick. I felt you had the vision and by far the best fit for Troutdale, and I wasn't alone in that thinking. And I guess, you know, I personally would be willing to do just that anything to help you guys get something going in there.
Yeah, thank you for that. Yeah, we did talk with Ray quite a bit about, you know, what is their interest from a limited service hotel that could, you know, most likely be closer to the northern end of that site on I-84, that would serve really folks that were going to want to go out in the gorge, go into the city. They could really, you know, use that as a starting point to go throughout the Multnomah County and the gorge. It didn't seem like, from talking with Ray, there had been much outreach in terms of that. We didn't go out and do a whole market study on, what the demand is for hotels right now in that area. But that was just one thought that we did have. I think when it comes to having, I'm not sure if you were getting at this, but when you were talking, it was bringing to mind like a retail anchor, like a large, 50,000 square foot plus retail anchor. Our opinion from talking with retail brokers, and they've convinced us of this, and we agree that you really need to have that main street coming in. You need to have a there. Similar to when you're working on your main, the main street in Troutdale, you want it to feel inviting and welcoming. And, like I described earlier, going in front of that Starbucks on a smaller road and behind it kind of a service area for those northern outlet buildings, it just doesn't do much there. So, we'll continue to think through and think about the site as things pop up and we hear about things in conversations with others. But nothing at this point is jumping out at us.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? And really quick, I just wanted to remind everybody, we have a special city council meeting that's scheduled for 8 o'clock. But any other comments or questions now? Diane.
Okay, just a real quick comment. I am hoping that Chris and Lauren, they're the visionaries. We like their plan. We like that they were influenced by Hood River. I'm hoping that they give input to Marley, if possible, as to what things on the trail and the river would be an enhancement or optimal for future development, because they might know some few things like, hey, you might want access here, access there, just whatever they have. And also, I'm hoping we do hire a landscape engineer. I worked at Skamania Lodge when it first opened, and that was just beautiful how the creator did wildflower seeds and all that other stuff. My point is that we do make that entrance as optimally beautiful as possible, so that we can try to create something magical and wonderful that leads, just kind of do the best that we have with it. But we might need to think a landscape engineer, but any other input that Lauren and Chris may want to give us to make that the most optimal, the best entrance we can make. I'd be really interested if that's possible. Thank you.
All right, Director Ritma.
You did the ownership of the factory outlets change since we established the urban renewal area? I mean, I'm asking because when we first set up, I think, made it the urban renewal area, we acquired a right-of-way, an option for a right-of-way through the factory outlets along the lines of what we want now. And help, it was a couple $100,000 a year just for the option, and nothing was going to happen soon enough to make it work. But there was a time when they were willing to have a road punch through, and I just wondered if anybody knows. Did the ownership change?
Yeah, we're currently on the third owner since then. I think it was Simon was the owner back then, or Simon was the next owner, and then Time Equities bought it. I don't know, Ed, Eric, do you remember? Simon was one of them.
Simon was the second of the three. I don't recall the name of the first. And the last purchase was what, about 2017 or 18?
Which, 15 or 16, $27 million when Time Equities bought it.
It was at kind of the high point of retail pricing for land and sites. So they paid what seemed even then to me to be a very high price for it. And I don't think an appraisal would bear that out at this point. So they're trying to make a silk purse right now out of something else.
Mr. Mueller.
This is the third owner, as was mentioned. The first was Chelsea Partnership, then it went to Simon. The current owners acquired it as a piece of a a collection or a portfolio that Simon was trying to divest of because Simon was restructuring to do some larger deal, and I forget what that was, but this property was one of, I don't know, like 15 or so that was in a bundle that Time Equities acquired, which I believe they were potentially more interested in other parts of the bundle. This one sort of came along as part of it rather than it being a specific objective of theirs. And then, yes, the agency spent a couple $100,000 on a right-of-way directly through the mall with Chelsea Partnership. When the economy took the downturn in the 2008 timeframe, the council at that point elected not to continue the option, and so that opportunity expired. And then, of course, it's changed ownership twice since then.
Okay,
Sure.
just wondered if, I assume this right of way that the city owns, we're not going to develop it until we have something that we're doing it for, or are we?
Actually, our goal at this point is to develop it. We're not going to be ready to put it out to bid till probably the end of 2024. Currently, the right of way as it sits is fairly well ready for a road because it is a road all the way around. We just simply have to expand it and make sure the sidewalks are. So we're going to find out what that's going to take. So by the end of the year, we'll know what the cost is to do that. It will also occur after we've likely done the trail. So the big trucks going in and out to do the trail, that'll be done before we kind of do up our right of way. I'm trying to think how to say this correctly. I think if we're going to do the best we can to put our best foot forward, it's to get the trail done and get that right of way in there and through. And we just never know what the impact of putting a nice big city street right in front of several of the most profitable tenants might do to their ability to or desire to cooperate with us. Just a speculation, but I think we need to get that property ready for the citizens to use the trail and for people to be able to see what the road would look like, since that's what we have. I mean, no ill will toward Time Equities and the owners, but the reality of what that road's going to do may change somebody's thinking, or maybe I'm just smoking something funky. I don't know, but I think we have to get ready for what we have, which is that right away.
Understood. Thank you.
Mr. Will Knight, thank you for raising your hand.
Hey there, yeah. Just so that I can help get an idea of what the future moving forward might be like and when that opportunity arises again for the city, I have one more clarification question for Capstone that will hopefully give me some true crystal clarity on what we're really the objections are. At the beginning, I did hear two objections, one of which is the most obvious and in front of us and the one that we can see, and that's the road through. The other one is market conditions, and based upon some rumblings and things I'm hearing, there may be a very large commercial real estate correction coming in the near future. So I guess my question in looking forward timing and in the future is, in this decision, Capstone, these two things, is one weighted more than the other? Is it 50-50 road and market? Is it 80% road, 20% market? And where are we at with that as far as, I guess, if the road was through, would you still be moving forward regardless of market conditions? Or is there a lot more behind the scenes with market that we're not seeing? And if so, what market conditions should we as the group and the city be looking for to restoke the fire on this project? Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, fair question. Thank you for it. I mean, to put it in percentages, I would say it's the vast majority is because of the road. I think that there's a way that, with Abe's expertise and oversight, there's a way to structure around, having a master developer partnered with the city and waiting until the market timing corrects itself and it's time to go. And there was a fair amount of entitlement work that needed to be done on the site anyway, between getting permits and planning and platting it and so forth. So yeah, some of that could have eaten into some of that time before the market corrects itself. I think when we had that initial interview, I would say we were probably a little bit more optimistic about when the correction would actually happen and we'd get going than we probably are now. But you know, like I said, we could figure out a way to continue to work together. It just going forward. So it really is the road.
Mr. Tanny Stephenson. Oh, you're muted.
Sorry about
Tanny, you're
that.
muted.
I am so sorry about that. Question for Ray. Are we looking at building that road and then hoping that time equities would react to that?
That would not be a primary reason to look to put in the road. What we are first going to do during this year is we are going to design the road. We have to do the engineering design work to be able to lay out what it's going to look like, how it's going to be laid out in relationship to the mall and our current right-of-way. Once we have that done, then we can get an estimate on construction. And the way engineering tells me is their timeline, we're not going to be ready for that to know the price, and we're going to do it till the end of 2024, first of 2025, which is probably just about the same time we need to be looking at development again to see what happened during this year and after the election. Elections always seem to affect the economy in some way or the other. So we would be looking at that point, making a decision a year from now as to whether we go forward and put it out for bid to do the road. Because like I indicated earlier, by that time, you know, we hope and pray that we'll have the trail already done. We'll have a beautiful new city park along the waterfront. And it would be nice to have that road finished so that people could then drive to it and maybe have, if on the property right now, you could probably do a parking lot there in the corner that people could park, get access to the trail and the bike trail that will take you, you know, all the way from, you know, Hood River all the way to the airport along the trail there. It also provides, if time equities continues to be the old proverbial stick in the mud, it would at least provide any possible developers in the future to be able to know, oh, that's exactly what the right-of-way looks like. It's been developed and ready to go. So I think those are probably the primary two reasons that a year from now, Tanny, we would be discussing this very thing is, do we go forward with the road?
Yeah, because looking at it, we go forward with the road, but that really is going to kill a majority of the development long-term, probably.
Yeah, but at this point, you know, as I explained, and we have done everything humanly possible, I believe, to get time equities to pay attention to us, and they have given us the proverbial middle finger, going so far as to hire a lawyer to send us a nasty letter saying, "Go away, don't bug us anymore." So, if that's their approach, and they show no indications of really wanting to sell that mall, we have to live with them, and we have to figure out how best to put us in the best position to develop the property for the city. And at this point, that's all we got.
No, I know. And I think you said something early on that really stuck with me, which was they don't care.
They haven't told me that, but that just seems to be the only explanation I can have, because it makes no logical sense that if they saw a future for that mall to do well or cared. I'm not a developer, but everyone I've talked to, and Capstone, Chris, Lauren, let me know if I'm wrong, it would be a hugely financial double blessing for the owner of the mall and whoever developed the property if they work together for that access. It would just do so much for that mall. It would be, you know, amazing. But they don't even want to talk about it.
Yeah, I understand. And Chris and Lauren, I would just like to thank you guys for all the work that you put into this, and you just did an outstanding job. And it was an honor to hear your presentation, and hopefully we have the chance to work with you guys in the future. Thanks.
Thank you.
All right, any other comments or questions? Director White.
TCAB for their involvement. Your group is really important. So hang in there. I appreciate all your hard work.
All right, let's go ahead and open up public comment. Public comments open on this agenda item. If you wish to make public comment regarding this agenda, go ahead and raise your hand, unmute yourself, state your name and city of residence for the record. All right, not seeing anybody. Okay, I'm going to close public comment. All right, if there's nothing further, thank you very much, everybody. Thank you to Capstone. Abe, appreciate your vision and your expertise in this. Thank you to TCAB and staff for all of the hard work that we've put into this thus far, hoping for a better outcome in the near future. With that, we'll move on to really quick before we move on to the next agenda item, which is adjourning. It's reminding everybody that we do have a special council meeting right after this, and it is on this same channel, correct, Sarah? Okay, so we're going to adjourn this meeting and then re-adjourn for the city council meeting. All right?
I move we adjourn.
Second.
Okay. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, signify by saying nay. All right. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much, everybody.